Bear with me. Internet connection. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we are live.
We are live. Great. Um, Hi everyone. My name is Tim with Bluewater Travel, and I have Anne here, also with Bluewater Travel. We were both traveling in Indonesia just a month ago. So we're doing this webinar on Alor and Halmahera. I was in Alor and Anne was in Halmahera. So we're gonna co-host this webinar and split it up into two parts. Thank you all for joining. If you wanna, how many people? Wow, we have quite a few people. So feel free to ask questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask a questions, ask any questions you want, or you can put your questions in the chat group, in the chat, sorry, and we will answer them maybe at the end. So, yeah, so let me start by sharing my screen because we have a beautiful presentation here. Great. Um, again, this webinar is about Alor and Halmahera. We decided to do this because, well, firstly, because we were both just there, but also um, Alor and Halmahera really, really blew our minds when we were there. Both of us, me and Anne, have been diving all around Indonesia. Anne actually lives in Bali. We've been to Raja, Komodo, Lembe, Manado. And when I went to Alor and went to Halmahera, it was amazing. We just both had such a great time, so we wanted to share it with everyone. So let me talk about Alor first. Um, I think that Alor is one of Indonesia's most unspoiled dive destinations. It reminded me a lot of Raja Ampat in terms of the reefs, how healthy they were, and how filled with fish they were. Um, Visibility was always amazing. I think the worst visibility we have on the non-macro dive. On the non-macro dive, the worst visibility we had was maybe 60 feet. And it was always constantly about 80, 100 feet, like as far as I can see. Um, when it came to macro, the macro really reminded me of Lembe. There was so many craters on every dive, and a lot of it was over black sand, which if you're an underwater photographer, it makes for really, really, really nice pictures. And the thing that blew my mind too was like in Lembe, the moment you back row in and you get down to the bottom, even in a small group of four, you were constantly shooting a subject. Very seldom did we have to find subjects because they were everywhere. So that was really, really nice. Um, I also went around the full moon period. So around the full moon, the currents kind of pick up. And because we're so close to the Bender Sea in the north, um, uh, during the full moon, the currents can really pick up, and it reminded me a lot of diving in Komodo at some dive sites where the current is strong and there's bigger animals that show up, sharks, bumphead, parrotfish. I recently, in fact, a few days ago, just saw a video of one of my dive guides with dolphins, which was incredible. I'm so jealous. Um, and the last thing that really blew my mind is it has so much culture, just like Bali. It's very unique, very unspoiled. A lot of people that work in the resorts, a lot of locals that work in the tourism industry in Alor are first generation. Their parents were all fishermen, they were all farmers. And because tourism is so new in Alor, they are all first generation. So it's really, really a unique culture. You still see fishermen fishing with traditional wooden homemade fish traps. They don't use bait. They even make their own swim goggles, swimming down from the homemade canoes, and it's just really, really, really unique and 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 very cool. Something that you don't see in a lot of rest of the world. So a little bit about where Alor is. This is a map of Indonesia. Bali, everybody knows where Bali is. Jakarta is here. So as you go further east, past Komodo, past Maumere, you hit Alor. So Alor is right here. In the north of Alor is the Banda Sea, okay, where there's a lot of, where it's known for hammerheads and big pelagics. And if you keep going further north, here's Raja Ampat, right here. And if you go a little bit back to the west, Halmahera is there, and Lembe and Punakan. So hopefully it gives you a little, Indonesia is huge, so this gives you a little bit of an idea of where Alor is, way in the south. Or, close to Komodo and Bali, and Halmahera, which is on the northern side next to Lembe and Raja. Okay, let me go to the next slide. How do you get to Alor? I must admit that getting to Alor is not that easy. But as you know, as it becomes more popular, it is getting easier to get there. There were a couple of flights that were stopped during COVID and never came back, but we are hoping that it's going to become more accessible soon. So the best way is to fly to either Bali or Jakarta first, and all flights have to route through Kupang. And then from Kupang is a short, I believe, maybe an hour flight to Alor. Again, Indonesia is a big place, and if any of you have been to Raja before, you all know that it's also not easy to get to Raja. Raja is somewhere up here. So most people would have to fly to Jakarta and take a 6-hour flight all the way to Raja. And so Alor is slightly closer, but you do have to transit through Kupang. And currently that is the only way to get to Alor is through Kupang. Okay. There are multiple flights a day, so it's not that difficult. It's just there's a couple of transits. The best time to dive. So diving at Alor is possible year round. I was there in July and we had excellent visibility. I think it rained maybe half a day at most. It would rain at night occasionally, which was actually really nice. But we didn't get any rain at all. So April to November is the high season. It's the calm season where and the dry season as well. There is also a blue whale migration season, which happens in June and July, where blue whales migrate from Antarctica north to the Banda Sea, and they spend a few months in the Banda Sea, and around October, they migrate back south towards Antarctica. If your goal is really to see blue whales, from the surface, you've got to be extremely lucky to see them underwater. But if you want to see blue whales on the surface, it's better to go during the June, July season because the whales are reaching their destination. So they're slowing down. They even go into the bay and they hang out. In the 10 days that I was there, we saw blue whales 4 times, which was really, really nice. Blue whales, if you're not aware, they're the largest mammal on Earth, the largest animal on Earth. If you go in the October, November period, the blue whales are kind of faster because they're just leaving the Banda Sea and they're heading down towards Antarctica. So they kind of move a bit faster. So June, July, if you really want to see blue whales from the surface, from the boat, or from the resort, June, July is the best period to go. Water temperatures are warm the whole time I was there. There are a few dive sites, especially around the full moon period, where the current kicks up and brings the cold water from the deep. The water can drop significantly down to about 72 Fahrenheit, 22 Celsius, but most of the dive sites are nice and warm in the 80s, very Caribbean-like water temperatures. Visibility, like I mentioned ago, is excellent, usually about 60 feet or more. The mud sites most of the time they're a bit lower because they're in the bay. But if you're into monk diving, you know that, even with 30 feet visibility, monk diving it can be really, really excellent. In fact, most of our monk dives, we still had about 40 or 50, maybe even 60-foot visibility. Um, so visibility usually in the law is really, really good. Currents, like I mentioned, um, it usually happens around the full moon, a few days before the full moon and into the full moon, the current starts to pick up. But if you're a newer diver, if you're a beginner diver, or if you just don't like diving in current because you have a camera with you, there are so many dive sites around Alor that you do not have to go to the ones that have the current. The current usually brings the bigger animals like hammerheads. So there's at least one dive site where around the full moon there is a decent chance of seeing hammerheads. But again, if you don't want to dive at sites where there are currents, where you just want to bring your camera and take pictures of the reef and the fish, there are so many dive sites that have absolutely no current. Um, and because of that, the dive sites in Alor are suitable for beginner all the way through advanced. Again, some of the dive sites are so shallow that it's great for snorkelers. Literally in 5 feet, you get excellent coral life, so much fish life, and some sites you can go down to easily past 120 feet. There's sites with current, sites without current. So there's something for everyone in Alone. Let's see, the marine life. Critters, macro is amazing. There's so much macro in the lore. It really, really reminded me of Lumbe. We saw rhinopias, we saw tons of frogfish. One thing that blew my mind was the bobtail squid. I love bobtail squid, and we saw so many bobtail squid. I was so happy. Um, Tons of nudibranchs, lots of seahorses, pygmy cuttlefish, all kinds of mackerel. There's mackerel over black sand in the bay, and there's mackerel over white sand as well. So there's really a whole range of mackerel. Um, Now, larger marine life. I personally would not go to to Alor to see big marine life. There can be sharks I saw a couple of sharks. There can be turtles, schools of barracuda, bumpy parrotfish, but they are not as common as in other areas around Indonesia or the rest of the world. So I would not go to Alor for the larger marine life. If you do like to see larger marine life, go around the full moon period, and that's where the larger marine life really start to come up. Like I mentioned before, one of the dive sites is a pretty good place to see hammerheads. They do make an appearance around the full moon period where the current picks up and the water temperature drops. One very unique thing to see in the lore is a dugong. So a dugong is kind of a relative of a manatee. They're slightly different. And near the airport, quite away from the dive sites. So it's a full day trip or half-day trip. There is a dugong that became friends with a local, which is a really funny story. The local, he's huge into conservation. He was planting mangroves, and one day the dugong started following him, and the dugong followed him for 3 days, and somehow they became friends. So now he's bringing tourists to see the dugong. You cannot get in the water with the dugong unless you have a special permit for research or something like that. But you can, but it's almost scary because the dugong is still wild. His name is Mawa, and Mawa is still wild. But every time the boat goes out, Mawa will come over and hang out with the boat. So it's almost guaranteed to see a dugong, and it's pretty incredible. It's a nice activity to do before you fly home when, you're on your off casting day. Um, for me, the highlight of Alor are the reefs. I think that the reefs really rival those in Raja Ampat. They are full of life. They are so healthy. I love just staring at the reef and all the little antheas that live on the reef, and there are just so many of them, and it's just so beautiful. And because visibility is so good, and especially if you go during the dry season, there's really good sunlight coming in, and the reefs are shallow. You can get some really, really nice reef shots because there's so much ambient light. Um, and the reefs are just so healthy. In each coral bommy or each wide angle shot of the reef, it's impossible to count all the different types of coral, soft coral, hard coral. That for me is the highlight of Alor. If you're really, really, really into reefs, pretty beautiful, multicolored reefs, that's what you go to Alor for. And in the evening, macro. So how do you dive Alor? You can dive Alor from a resort or a liverboard. These days, there are more liverboards that include Alor in their off season from Raja. So more and more liverboards are starting to go to Alor. There are a few resorts in Alor, I believe about 5 or 6 resorts in Alor. So there's not a lot of resorts in Alor yet. It's still pretty quiet. Um, and either one, you can do both because all the dive sites, I'll show you a dive map soon, but they're all really close. The closest, dive site that it's like 5 minutes, and where I stayed, and the furthest one is maybe half an hour. So all the dive sites are accessible from the resort. And obviously, if you dive on the liverboard, they're all accessible as well. Um, let's see. So here's the dive map. Um, you can see, is my cursor? Oh, my cursor is here. Okay. Um, the ones in blue, they are marked diving. That is in Kalabahi Bay. And the ones here, and the ones all out here, they're, with, oops, sorry, where there's beautiful reefs and everything. So I stayed at a few dive resorts here and here, and even from here in the bay, for me to get to Balagang Jetty all the way out here, maybe it took us half an hour max. And the ride out is so beautiful and gorgeous. We saw blue whales, we saw dolphins on the way out. So it's a really nice ride.
Tim, are you still with us?
Just like in Lumbe, in the little Lumbe Straits where the mud diving is the best in the bay, mud diving is excellent. As you can see, there's so many dive sites. There's just so many dive sites, so you don't see other divers. What they do in Alor, all the resorts, they have a WhatsApp chat group, and the day before, all the resorts have a chat and they tell each other where they're going for their morning dives and for their afternoon dives. So they don't cross each other. So you will never see another group in Alor. If you're diving from a liverboard, there's also another separate chat group where the liverboards, if they're in law, they have to join. And so even the liverboard have to declare which dive sites they want to go to. So the resorts and the liverboards don't clash. So you really, really won't see another dive group while you're diving. You have the whole dive site to yourself, which is really nice. I mean, if you've been to Komodo or you've been to Raja, you've been to Bali, every time you look out, you see dozens of dive boats around or dozens of liverboards around. So it was really refreshing for me to go to Alor for 10 days and not see a single other dive group in the water. These are three of the resorts that I stayed at. Um, Alor is located in the bay, in Kalabahi Bay. So while it's slightly further out to go to some of the dive sites, maybe 15 minutes boat ride, maybe 20 minutes boat rides, half an hour to the further ones. The mud diving in the bay was 5 minutes at the most. I also stayed at Alor Tanapi and Moko Alor, which is outside of the bay, and the boat rides to the dive sites were 10 minutes. It takes about maybe 10 to 15 minutes to cross the bay around here, to cross the channel, sorry. So the dive sites are all really close, and your boat rides are not long. Surface intervals, they usually do go out for 2 dives in the morning. So surface intervals are usually spent on the boat. They usually go to a nice protected area. There's usually not a lot of wind and waves, but if there are, you go to a nice little bay where you can hang out. And the surface intervals are actually really nice because you can witness the indigenous fishermen fishing. They go out in their little canoes and they paddle along the reef with their fish traps loaded onto the canoe. They put on their homemade goggles made of wood and glass. Really incredible. And they'll canoe up to the boat, to our dive boat, and they'll wave at you. They're really, really friendly. Sometimes I've even jumped in and snorkeled with them and saw how they free dive down to the reef. No fins, with their little goggles, wearing shorts or speedos, diving down 60 feet to set their fish traps. It was just incredible. Sometimes you will stop by like a school where then the school children out and they were singing and dancing. So the service intervals are actually really, really nice. So the boat will usually go out for 2 dives in the morning, come back to the resort, and they either do an afternoon dive or a night dive. You can also do 4 dives a day. Certain resorts have house reefs where you can do unlimited amount of dives. So some of us that like to do 4 to 5 dives a day, it is very possible in Alor. So I'm just going to go over some of the resorts that I stayed at. Alor Tanapi, we do have a special for them. If you book now, you get a free room upgrade. Tanapi is located on top of a hill. So you get a really nice view. This is actually the view from the resort. Really gorgeous. The sunsets from the resort are just incredible. They are good for guests that like stunning views. Their bungalows are really nice, so they're good for high-end guests. They are very, very professionally run. Halfway through my stay, they gave me a feedback form. Not even at the end of my stay, the middle of my stay, they gave me a feedback form to see how they were doing, what they can improve for the rest of my stay, which I thought was really nice. They have a turn down service. They also have a lot of cultural and nature excursions that you can do from the resort that they can arrange for you. So it's very good for guests that like to do that. Again, if you book now, you get a free room upgrade. They have many different categories of room. Their smallest category for room, if you're a solo traveler, if you're a single traveler, they have a special room just for singles. So you're not having to pay double for a bigger room. So if you're a single traveler, Alor Tanapi is a really good place to go. Moko Alor is pretty close to Alor Tanapi. I think it's really good for guests who likes to be immersed in local culture because they are right next to a market, a local market, and you can actually walk there, and it's I obviously bought cash to purchase sarongs or fish traps that the local women have made. But when I was there, I saw the locals bartering. So there was one guy buying rice, and he took a bag of rice from a guy who used a old school weighing scale, and he gave the guy a chicken. So they, I saw it blew my mind. It was the first time I saw that. So and for guests who like to go out and see the local culture and walk into town, Mokolo is a great place to stay because you can do that. They have a really nice house reef. It's huge. It's really extensive. It's a bit of a swim. It's about 100 meters swim, but you can do 4 or 5 dives on that house reef and not dive the same spot because it's so big. It's a more family feel in the resort, more relaxed, more local feel in the resort. It's also better for small kids because they actually have a little beach. And as you can see here, they have a quite a nice pool. They are on the cheaper side. So if you're on a little bit of a budget, Moko Alor is a great place to go to. Um, and we have a package, 7 nights for only 2,300, so it's pretty inexpensive. Um, Another place I stayed at is Alami Alor. Alami Alor is good for high-end guests. The bungalows are really nice. They're really private, and they all look out on the ocean. There is a nice infinity pool as well, for guests that like to hang out, skip the afternoon dives and hang out by the pool. Um, Alami Alor has a really, really, really nice house reef. It's great coral, great mackerel, and they have a jetty. So basically, you just jump off the jetty, and the house reef starts right there. It's great for snorkelers. In fact, a lot of the divers, I brought a group there, 16 of us, and we did actually a lot of snorkels because it was so shallow, and the snorkeling was just as good as the diving. So on the house reef. So it's really, really, really good for snorkelers. Really good for a house reef dives. I did probably half of the dives that I did there were on the house reef, and the other half was from the boat, just because the house reef was so good and it's unlimited diving as well. So when you want to do a house reef dive, they just bring you a tank to the jetty. Someone will help you put on your gear. You jump in. Someone will be sitting at the jetty to make sure everything's okay, tracking your bubbles. Within, I think, a dozen fin kicks, you can swim down to 60 feet, and the coral extends, the reef extends from like 2 feet all the way down to 60 feet. Great mackerel, white sand. So great mackerel over white sand. What else? Good for photographers. They have a nice, really nice camera room with AC, right in the dive shop, right in front of the jetty. I think it takes about 12 camera stations, and the resort only takes like 14 or 16 guests. So even if everyone brings a camera, you have a spot. Um, let's see. Okay, so I will now pass it on to Anne. Wow,
Thank
I've
you
been
very
talking for
much.
half an hour, and
Yes.
you can go and talk about Halmahera.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, Tim. Thank you. So I will talk about Halmahera, but first of all, I will introduce myself. I'm Anne, and I've been living in Indonesia for 12 years, so mostly in Bali, but I traveled all around and know a lot of Indonesia. And like Tim said in the beginning of this webinar, I went to Halmahera at the end of June, and I was mind blown by the beauty of it. It's a very remote area, so it's quite difficult to get to, and we will get more in details with the flights a little bit later. But that makes it also very exclusive. Like there's not many resorts. When you're in the water, you're mostly alone. And the corals, the marine life, everything was just amazing. So yeah, there I am presenting it to you because I really loved it. So the thing is that you can find some strong currents in Halmahera. And it's not like in Alor, it's not around the full moon phases or whatsoever. It's like currents can arise at any time. So the resorts are very prepared to that. There are some bays, some dive sites that you can visit where the currents are or less, or it's more protected, and the dive guide will be very aware of it. But still, it's very good for divers and snorkelers. While I was there, most of the people in the resorts were snorkelers as well, and the resorts were accommodating them as well as the divers. So why travel to Indonesia? Yeah, of course you should travel to Indonesia, but why going to Halmahera? It's not so much like in Alor for the big pelagics. You will see those beautiful corals with like glass fishes everywhere, a lot of marine life, but mostly small marine life. Sharks obviously are present. You can see also whales passing by. It happens. At some point, we saw orca passing by from the resort. So everything is possible, but you go there more for the coral life and for the macro. I was so surprised to find amazing macro over there. A bit like Tim said, comparing to Lembe, you have white sands and you also have black sands. So it's a bit of a mix of both. But I saw so many critters that I never saw before, actually, also. So yeah, it is just an amazing destination. Tim, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so like I mentioned, it's a bit difficult to get to, like most of the places in Indonesia. And as a matter of fact, when I traveled, a volcano erupted. So my whole itinerary got completely changed. And that's why I always recommend a travel insurance, just in case when you're traveling to Indonesia, you really never know what can happen. So most of the people will fly through Jakarta, and from Jakarta there is a direct flight to Ternate, which is the entry point of Halmahera. From there you can go to the north, will be Morotai, or to the south of Halmahera, Labua. In Labua, the resorts will come pick you up, and then you have about a 1 hour transfer with the speedboat. It's a very small Indonesian town, so you don't need to expect much. If you want to buy some things before coming, I highly recommend buying them either in Jakarta or Manado, because, or even taking money or whatsoever, because Labua is very small. And Ternate is a bit bigger, but still, it is still a very remote town in Indonesia. Another entry point could be Manado. So I actually got rerouted through. I left Denpasar, then went to Jakarta, then went to Manado, then went to Ternate, and then went to Labuan. So I would definitely not recommend going to Bali first. Jakarta or Manado would be the best points of entry into Indonesia before flying on to Halmahera. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so fun story. At each resort, I was asking, so what is the best time to go to Halmahera? And every time they said to me, there is no best time. And I'm like, but so how can I recommend my guests when to come? And basically, there is really no best time. It's just underneath the equator, so that the temperatures are kind of the same year round. It will be raining at some times, but we cannot expect. I went in June, July, and I had some rain at some point, but not so much neither. I know that one resort, Nabucco Spice Island, because of the winds, they have to close in January, February, because their boats cannot go out. But all the other resorts are located on a different side of the islands, which is protecting their bay, so there is no issue for diving from there. But you could really go anytime during the year. The high season is August to December mostly. That's when most of the people go there. Also, that's when the liveaboards will go on their way back from Raja Ampat, or yeah, mostly on their way back from Raja Ampat. Or no, sorry, on their way going to Raja Ampat. It's the opposite. There are not so many liveaboards for now, so most of the time it's resort based. But there's more and more liveaboards considering offering that route, because it's still very untouched and very beautiful. So it could be that in the next coming year, more liveaboards will offer this route. The water temperatures in the water, well, it was 27 to 30 degrees. I was in a shark skin and leggings, and I wasn't cold. I would still recommend a hoodie sometimes because, like in Alors, the water can come from deeper parts and can be a bit chillier at times. but most of the time I was comfortable with just my shark skin and my leggings. Um, when I was there, I had some days good visibility and sometimes not. It bit depends on the currents as well, coming in and out. But each dive site, and that's really, really interesting, each dive site has one part that is macro and one part that is more coral dives. So, for example, the snorkelers were dropped at one side of the dive site, and I really love macro. I love all these small things. So I was more on the sandy bottom before the corals, and then ended my dive after having taken my macro pictures on the beautiful corals in the shallows. So yeah, it's like Tim said, for macro, you don't need such a good visibility. You can find amazing creatures as well, but you can have, it really depends. From one day to the other, the visibility can change because of the currents. In general, the dive guides were really, really, really good at finding the dive sites where we would be protected from currents. But there were some dive sites that were a bit more exposed to currents, and we had to abort one dive because the current suddenly changed in the water. So I would say that it's a destination that still requires some comfort in currents. It's definitely not a beginner destination, a bit like Raja Ampat. You need a certain level of dives to feel comfortable in those waters, but you can be protected from the current. Tim, can you go to the next one, please? Okay, so here are some of my pictures that I took in Halmahera, and as you can see, we had the walking shark, the Raja Ampat walking shark, that is present there as well. You can see them a lot on night dives. Some resorts like Nabucco Spice Island walks on the jetty in the evening and with a light and searches for the walking sharks. You can see a lot of seahorses, so the Bargibanti. I saw the seven seas seahorse, pontohis. Like it's something very common to see there. Another one that is not represented here, but it was the first time I saw it, and I went to Lembe, was the Lembe sea dragon that I saw in Halmahera. Nutty branches, like pipe fishes, a lot of critters, so many critters. And like I said, some dive sites are exclusively macro, but most of them are just a mix of both. So you can really enjoy, you can enjoy like both of them. Now, for larger marine life, like we discussed, it's maybe not the best place. They always come by, but you're not going there to expect larger marine life. They see whales sometimes passing by from the resort or on the boats. This, like I said, a orca. I saw a nurse shark on a night dive in 1 meter of water just in front of Sally Bay, which was quite amazing. We saw some eagle rays as well, but it was not on every dive. So it's more famous for all those little fishes. It's very colorful fishes that you can find around the corals, and that makes just the scenario on the water amazing. And corals, yes, of course, corals, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful corals, hard corals, soft corals, lots of fishes, and then bumpets, just like going around, schooling of fishes, a bit very similar to Raja Ampat, but with less divers, same as in Alor, less liveaboards, less divers in the water in general. I was mostly the only person in the water with the people on my boat, obviously, but like the dive resource talk between them, and they don't go to the same dive sites. It's big enough, so you have enough places to be able to go, and it was very, very nice. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so how to dive on Mahera, I already touched that a little bit because I'm always talking too much. But you can go with liveaboards, and actually Tim is doing a trip in Halmahera in 2027, if I'm not mistaken. So a group trip to Halmahera on one of the Wallacea boats. So there are some of the boats offering this route, but the other boats as well are including it, mostly August, September. Resorts, there are 4 resorts in the south of Halmahera, so around La Buha. and one resort only in the north, in Morotai. So I will go over them in a minute. But so mostly people will do resort-based diving, and you don't miss out on dives when you do resort-based. The only thing that the liveaboard does is goes a bit more out. The dive sites between Ternate and Morotai, where you can see some wrecks, sometimes some more pelagics. But all the dive sites of the south of Halmahera will be covered if you stay in that area. Thank you. You read my mind. Okay, so here are the dive sites. So I cannot show you with my mouse because Tim is showing it. But when you go down, that's where Nabucco Spice Island and Kuzu Island Resort are located. And you have quite a bit of dive sites around here. And they will also go more towards the north, where you have Sally Bay. So where the cursor of Tim is right now is Sally Bay, and a little bit above is Pocho Island. So yeah, exactly. So it a lot of people combine two resorts, and it's very doable because obviously the ones in the south will dive more around their Ross Reef, even though they go to the other ones. So combining one week with one resort and another week with another is also a good way to do it. And actually, there were people doing that while I was there. So we met each other at the resort, which was really nice. And we spent a good time together. So it will allow you to see most of those dive sites. Can you go to the next one, please? Okay. So obviously, that's what I talked about already. Um, so those are the four resorts in the south of Halmahera: Procho, Salibe, Napuco Spice Island, and Kusu Island Resort. And then when you go up north, really up north, is Metita. So Metita is in Morotai. We haven't talked about Morotai for the flights, and I think it's something I should add. There is only one flight a week to Morotai from Ternate. So if you want to go to Metita, you really have to check the dates where a flight is going to Morotai and going back. Um, Going to Ternate will not be an issue. It's going from Ternate to Metita to Morotai. I did the experience. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do a land transfer between Ternate and Metita. It took a very long time, about 7 hours, in very remote spaces. So most of the time you have no reception. I tried calling Tim, by the way, during my ride, and that just didn't work. So most of the time there is there is no reception. There is not really there is Indonesian toilets, so if you have been to Indonesia, you know that that means squatting toilets. Not really restaurants on the way or shops. Water you could find, but don't ask for too much neither. It's quite heavy. You have to go with the car, then with the speedboat, the car again, a speedboat again, like, and it's all a bit local, so it's doable, but you need to have like a sense of adventure and not being scared of really experiencing the Indonesian culture. Otherwise, there is the flight. And I think that's the easiest way. It's a very short flight from Ternate to Metita. Okay. And yeah, so Salibe. Salibe is a very nice resort where I had the pleasure of staying. It's good for mid to high-end travelers. They have two room categories. So they have the Divers Lodge for more mid-range travelers, and then they have the bigger bungalows on the beach. Yeah, so what Tim was showing was the Divers Lodge, and next door is the bungalow. Um, the diver lodge also gives on like as a view on the bay, but it's smaller, and it's a shared terrace, while the bungalow is more private and bigger. You have a space with a closet, and then you have your bathroom. There is a coffee machine in the room as well. So it's more comfortable, more private. I had a very good guide at Sally Bay, and we had a lot of fun finding critters. And what I really liked, and I'm going straight to the last pond, and then I will get back, but is that we in the evening all met together, dive guides included, sitting down on the sofas and like having a drink, talking about the diving day, showing the pictures. They were very interested and like seeing what we could search for next day. So really like discussing. So people there are very social and really want to interact with each other. There were a lot of solo travelers. From the jetty, it's quite easy to access. So the boat is almost at the same level as the jetty, and the whole resort is on the same grounds. So for people who are a bit scared of like having to like walk on stairs or whatsoever, Sally Bay is a good possibility. The snorkeling in the house reef is very good. On the right side of the house reef, the coral was amazing, but a bit of current. So for snorkeling, maybe a little bit more difficult. You need to make sure about the time of the day and really check the corals. But in the bay, it's very calm. Like I said, walking sharks, nurse shark I saw there as well, so that was really cool. And I made a drone video of the bay, and I didn't realize that a shark was just swimming by. So I was going up, and you saw the shark swimming. So yeah, this is for Sally Bay. We have a 10% discount on Sally Bay, and it's only for people who attended the webinar. So it's only for you guys. Can you go to the next slide, please? Kuzu Island, beautiful resort. The owners, Chris and Barbara, live on the spot and they have so much love for their resort. They will tell you about everything because they made almost everything by themselves. So they can really go into detail about the construction of their resort, how they put their heart into it. It's mostly for higher end customers, and I would say also like more if you want to be bit more secluded. The bungalows are not really like, they're not connecting. You cannot see each other from the bungalows. Some of them are on the beach. And actually, initially, they were all like this on the beach, like you can see on the picture, but with the water coming closer every time. So now some of the bungalows are over the water. Um, it's yeah, it's there are mangroves around, and it's a breeding area for black tip sharks. So you can see baby black tips passing by, and sometimes it happens that that they're chasing. So you see fish action everywhere. Like it's really nice to sit on your bungalow and just watch what's going around. Um, so it's also like Sally Bay, I forgot to mention, Sally Bay also has a camera room with aircon. Here also they have a camera room not far away from the dive center and the jetty, a really big camera room with aircon, and it's really good. Anyway, so getting in and out of the boat is a bit more difficult here. So the stairs are like slightly more in diagonal, but there is a second bay in the back where people who have it a bit more difficult, they bring the boat over there, and it's easier to access, and then you can just like walk through a little path back to the dive center and the bungalows. The house roof here was more wide angle than it was macro, but quite nice as well. And another place really good for snorkeling, like the four resorts in the south of Halmahera were all great for snorkeling. They told me a story about guests that actually snorkeled around the island, which is quite cool. It took them 4 hours though, but they did it. Yeah. So yeah. Next, yeah, and we have a special for this one as well. Thank you, Tim. So 7 nights and 15 dives from $2,881. Yeah. Next one, please. Procho Island. Procho Island is the resort the most on top in the north. Well, not in the north of Halmahera, but the north of that bay. It's great for mid-range guests. It's more a rustic feel. So everything is made out of bamboo, the whole resort. The restaurant, the bungalows, everything is made out of bamboo. And it is very close to the nature. So maybe for some people a bit more less comfortable than Kuzu or Nabucco or Salibe, sorry. But they have a really nice place. So you can go up, walk a bit up, and they have a sunset bar where you can sit down and watch the sunset and look at the currents also around the island because there's quite a bit of currents around Procho Islands, more than the other ones. The dive guides are excellent. They can find you a lot of critters. They are very knowledgeable. Actually, the guy I dived with was from Manado, and very, very knowledgeable. But they have not really a camera room. So they have a room that they say is a camera room, but it's very small, very compact, without aircon. So it's better to have your equipment in the room, which the other guest that was staying with us was doing. The bay is excellent for snorkeling. There is like a resident schooling of fish just around there. So when you dive, you can dive underneath the jetty and all those big fish, the schooling of fishes around, and you can see them from the jetty as well. So I spend a lot of evenings just sitting down there and watching the fish. And we have a 10% discount on this accommodation as well. And Nabucco Spice Island Resort. So that was actually the first resort I went to in Halmahera. It's very good for mid-range as well. They just changed management, so the two persons on site were quite new, but they told me about everything they are planning for the resort. They are planning to make a massage room, which was not present in Uzu Island. So you can have a massage a little bit everywhere. Sali Bay offers a massage room. Kuzu Island does massage in the room. Procho has a massage room as well, and this one they will make a massage room. So they were trying to renovate everything before the high season in August. It's good for photographers, though they don't have a specific camera room, but the dive guides were really good at spotting critters as well. Their house reef was one of the most beautiful dives I've done. And I've done quite a bit in Indonesia, but I asked to do it more times because it was just beautiful. Like lots of fishes everywhere, bumpets, sharks, hard corals mostly. So it was a bit darker. It was not like the shiny corals, but it was just full of life. A lot of life everywhere. So yeah, I asked to do that a few times. Um, it is also on one ground, so easier for people with limited mobility. There is no steps. You can either enter the resort by the jetty or from the beach. So when I arrived, it was from the beach because of the waves. This resort, the jetty, is a bit at a place where waves can occur. So mostly they will go towards the beach. Great for snorkelers as well. Like I said, the persons I met at almost each resort, they were there as well when I arrived, and then we met after at the other resorts. And we have a special here as well. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I think everybody can read it, right? Okay, and so Metita, whew, that's a lot of resorts to go through. So Metita, like I said, I left Labua, took a flight to Ternate and did all the road to Metita and arrived there and really enjoyed the resort. It's very beautiful. The owners were also owners of Papua Paradise in Raja Ampat, so maybe some of you might know about this resort. It's one of the higher end resorts of Raja Ampat, so they are the owners of Metita as well. They just bought it over, so the owners were on site when I was there, and they told me a bit about everything they are planning for the resort. There is a swimming pool, there's nightly turned on, a beautiful restaurant. The food was excellent as well. You, like at every resort, you have a few meals that you can choose from. You choose before going on your dives, and then you come back and it's ready for you. Here, the dives are mostly boat diving. So you're either doing the house reef that is 5 minutes away with the boat. You're not going straight from the shore, or you can go further away as well. 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. They are underwater mounts that are more towards more towards the mainland, not Ternate. That would be a very far road. Anyway, so it's still very exploratory. So they are still exploring the dive sites. It's the first dive resort in the area. There is a big potential, but it's still like researching a bit which dive sites are for what you can find there exactly. So it's very difficult to say what you will see. There is a lot of marine life, beautiful corals as well, sea mounts on the water. It was nice diving. They have a camera room for with aircon, and they cater to photographers as well. It's more off the beaten path. Like I said, there's only one flight a week to Morotai. We actually went exploring the local market. We went exploring the waterfalls to create like a little itinerary for guests who would like to explore a bit in the area, which is not possible with the resorts in the south because most of those resorts are on an island and there is nothing around. There is no local village or whatsoever. So if you want to visit, I talked about it with one of the managers on site of one of the resorts, and she said to me that it's best when you arrive in Ternate to overnight 1 or 2 days in Ternate to like look a little bit around the islands. There are a few things to see. Indonesian standards. You have to be aware of that. It's more off the beaten path. But you have beautiful beaches. It's also a sultanship, so you have like the palace of the sultan that you can visit, and that would be before going to the resorts in the south, not while you're there. It doesn't make sense to go up and down. Um, yeah, and here you can do it in a day trip. So there are a few waterfalls in Morotai, and we also went to the local market, but there is not much more than that to do on the island. And we also have a special day.
Great. I just realized that our chat wasn't working. So,
Oh
so
no!
if you guys have any questions, I'm sorry. You can just unmute yourself and ask us now. Uh, does anyone have any questions about Alor and or Halmahera?
I have a question. This is Rick. Anne, thank you for setting me up on the trip to, we got set up for December next year. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question on these two resorts, number of divers on the boats, 4, 8, 20. I mean, some resorts vary. So number of divers on the boats for both locations.
So I'll start first then. In Alor, the resort that I went to, we booked up the whole resort. It was 18, six, I think we brought 16 people total. And we split into two groups, so eight per boat, and we were diving in groups of four. So each boat had two groups of four. And yeah, so the boats are not, and the boats are pretty big, so it's really spacious. They all have a cover. It didn't feel crowded at all. And
Yeah, for Almahera, to be honest with you, when I went there, there were not many people apart from Sally Bay. It was a bit the lower season, let's call it that way. So we were not crowded on the boats. There were mostly more boats available. So there was not only one boat. Most of the resorts have different boats. The dive guide ratio is maximum 1 to 4, but most of those resorts will really like accommodate you and try to have your private dive guide if possible. If not, it will be 1 to 4. For the amount of people on the boat, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say also a 16 ratio, probably like Tim in Alor.
Hi, it's Tom Baker. I'm just wondering, in especially Halmahera, which I'm quite interested in, what's the situation with malaria?
Obviously, I would recommend going to see a traveling doctor before going. I'm personally not taking anything for malaria. I'm not getting bitten by mosquitoes neither, but it's Indonesia, and I 100% recommend like every of the resorts will have like those mosquito nets on their beds to protect you. They will also spray your room to make sure that in the evening there is no mosquitoes around. But protection, I would protect myself though, if I was you, because it's Indonesia and there are some of these sicknesses around. But
Okay.
I personally didn't got bitten that much over there. And there is a lot of like, they have those really good products in Indonesia. They are probably not very healthy, but they work very well against mosquito bites.
Okay. Thanks.
Hi, Tim, and it's Kurt Peters. First, great presentation. Tim, I'm on the September 1st liveaboard trip 2027. I cannot wait. I don't think, have either you or Ann done a liveaboard like that one in Halmahera at all yet?
Not in Halmahera, but I was actually on that boat a few years ago. We were going to go to Halmahera, but we changed the itinerary at the last minute because it was COVID. Um, so I am like you, I'm really excited to go to Halmahera because I miss going to Halmahera in 2020. The boat that we are on, so we have a group trip in 2027 to Halmahera. Our first group trip filled up within a few weeks. So we booked the second trip. So that second trip still has spots available. It is on the Ambai, one of the Wallacea boats. They have the Ambai and the Seahorse. It is a local Finisi boat made of wood. The thing I love about the boat is the service, the people. The service on the Ambai and the Seahorse are really, really the best. Some of the best of any liveaboats I've been on. They have a nice camera room. And again, just the service, you don't have to lift a finger at all week. So no, I haven't been to Halmahera on the boat. I've done a trip on the boat. But yeah, I'm like you, I'm super excited to go.
Yeah, I was glad the September 1 trip was added because
Yeah.
I'm on that one. I have booked it. I'm solo. Tim, if you need a roommate, let me know. But yeah, I can't wait. I have a weird question that's related to travel and blue water. I am leaving out of San Francisco. It'd be interesting to know if anyone else on that trip, once it's kind of booked, is like myself, West Coast departure, just to see what someone might do. I think I'm going 2 days in Singapore before, and then go from Singapore. But is there any way to connect with the people that eventually on the trip, Tim?
Yes, definitely, definitely. Before every group trip, we always do a group trip meeting so everybody meets each other. And if people are coming from the same area and want to travel together, we can always connect everyone. So yes, for
Okay,
sure, definitely.
great. Thanks,
Yeah,
Tim. Thanks.
thanks. Any other questions, anyone? Going
No,
once, going
thanks.
twice. No, great. Again, thank everyone for joining us. Sorry about the chat issue. And for listening to me and Anne go off about Alor and Halmahera. I hope some of you can make it there soon one day. Give us a call, send us an email. We are more than happy to help you book your trips. There's so many options, liveaboards and resorts. Our goal is to match you with the resort or the liveaboard that best fits your type of diving, that best fits the type of accommodation you want. So we've been there, we've been to the resorts. Give us a call, let us know, and we're more than happy to help you out. We also, like mentioned earlier, have a group trip in 2027 to Halmahera about the Ambai, which still has spots left. It's our second one because our first one filled up within a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in traveling with me and the group, again, just send us an email, go to our website, and thank you all for joining.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Hi,
you.
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you. Very
you.
good. Appreciate it.
Thanks.